Paul Newman is one of the most quintessential actors of our generation. I just learned that word, so I wanted to make sure I used it. As if he wasn't cool enough just being Paul Newman, this 9-time nominated and 1-time Academy Award winner had to up the ante of coolness into a realm that seldom has been matched. Paul Newman decided to drive race cars. His passion for racing began when he went to train for his film Winning in 1969 at the Watkins Glen Racing School in Watkins Glen, New York, which, coincidentally, is where I'm originally from. He took to racing immediately, competing in his first professional race in 1972 at Thompson International Speedway. Newman went on to win 4 SCCA championships and in 1979 finished second in his class at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. He won the 24 Hours of Daytona in 1995 at the age of 70 and took the pole in his last professional race in 2007, where it all began, at Watkins Glen International Speedway at the age of 81. In the 1960s, Newman's wife, Joanne Woodward, gifted him a Rolex Daytona Chronograph, reference number 6293. On the back, she had engraved, "Drive carefully, me." Newman wore this watch so often during races and interviews that it became nicknamed the Paul Newman Daytona. He wore the watch up until 1984, when he in turn gifted it to the man that was seeing his daughter, James Cox. Talk about a cool gift from your girlfriend's dad. Cox held on to the watch all the way until 2017 when it was put up for auction and sold for a world record $17.5 million. That's a lot of spaghetti sauce. Now, you and I will never be as cool as Paul Newman, let's get that straight. But you can wear a watch that homages his iconic Rolex, and it doesn't cost $17.5 million. Let's awkwardly bend over a table and take a look at the Alpha Paul Newman Daytona Homage. All right, guys, on my wrist today is going to be a vintage Timex circa 1978. I've got it on this gray suede leather strap. I think it looks awesome. This is a hand-wind watch. Since today's watch is also hand-wind, I thought, hey, pretty appropriate. And here is today's watch. This is the Alpha Chronograph Paul Newman Homage. You've got a 39mm case, a thickness of 15 millimeters, a lug-to-lug of 20 millimeters, tapering down to 16 at the clasp, back up to a meager 17.5 at the clasp. The case is going to be all 316L stainless steel, high polished sides, brushing on the top of the lugs, and a stainless steel bezel, which I think looks really neat, very reflective. The case back is something that you can write home about this week. That is displaying the beautiful ST1903 movement, also known as the SG2903. It's a seagull movement. It is Chinese, and it is a pretty much exact copy of an old chronograph movement called the Venus 175. It is highly decorated with blue screws, and it is arguably one of the most beautiful movements and justified here by a display caseback. The 9 o'clock position subdial counts the seconds. The 3 o'clock position one is called a 30-minute totalizer. Totalizer. Wasn't that like an 80s action TV show? The Totalizer. He's a rude dude with a bad attitude. The Totalizer. Sundays on ABC. And the 6 o'clock subdial is a 24-hour counter. If you're looking to pick one of these up, they do have a number of colorways on the Alpha website, alphawatch.com. If you don't like the Paul Newman style, they have various designs there for you to take a look at. The bracelet has hollow end links. We've got drilled lug holes, which is always a nice bonus on a watch. The bracelet is, I would say, of reasonable quality. The links are not that substantial, but they are screw pins, which is nice, going down to a stamped metal clasp, It is just a friction clasp, no sort of pushers or anything like that. It just clicks into place, and you have 6 micro adjustments there, so you should be able to get a perfect fit. Also embossed on the clasp is the Alpha A logo, and that also appears on the crown, done not overly well. It doesn't really jump out at you, but it's definitely there, and signed crowns are always nice. And since there's no bezel for me to click today, I'm going to start with the chronograph option. So, screw down pushers for the chronograph. They actually screw down quite nicely. And to start the chronograph, you simply push this top button, and the chronograph starts running. Now this, the action on the pushers is actually quite good. A nice substantial click. It doesn't feel flimsy at all. And stopping the chronograph is another push of the top button. Stops dead on, and the bottom button resets. And it still aligns very nicely. Everything on this watch is aligned just about perfectly. I have no complaints at all. Looking at the dial, you have the Alpha logo just below the 12 o'clock indices with the word Alpha in all caps, then 1993 mechanical chronometer. Now that is a little bit deceiving, well, more than a little bit deceiving. It is not a chronometer, it is just a chronograph watch. I guess to be a chronometer, you have to be COSC certified. That is a certification for movement accuracy, and this has not been tested for that. So not sure why they put that on there. A little disappointing, but I think they were just trying to fill up an overly blank dial, I guess, just filling in some space. And here it is with some natural light. Looks good and tasty. You've got 3 subdials, which I would describe as like record player style. You can see that there are circular lines throughout, and they are a bit raised up, if you can see there. The word chronograph appears at the 6 o'clock subdial. The crown is screwed down, and let me unscrew it here so you can see. Not a tremendous amount of threading on this crown. That was one of the major complaints about this watch, is that there aren't a lot of threads to engage, and apparently this is fairly easy to cross thread, and then you will not be able to screw down the crown. Although I'm unsure why this crown is screw down. This watch only has 30 meters of water resistance, so you're not going to go swimming with it. It's pretty much splash proof, and that's about it. It does hand wind, and that is how you operate this movement. The winding is, I would say, pretty good. There's a good amount of resistance. Everything feels good there. And screwing down the crown is a little bit challenging to do, and you certainly don't want to cross thread it. I actually had to screw that down off camera, take my glove off to do it. I didn't want to take any chances about ruining the threads on this. So the stainless steel bezel is quite nice, very reflective. It is a, now I'm going to say 2 words here, so I can't be picked apart too much in the comments. It's either called a tachymeter or a tachometer around the bezel for measuring speed. The printing on the subdials is fairly nice. It's actually well done for printing on a raised surface. There is a little bit of lume on this watch. It lasts a decent amount of time. I wouldn't say it lasts all through the night, but there are lumed dots at every indices, and the hour and minute hand are also lumed. You can see it in the dark. I would say it will last maybe like an hour or 2 in a low light level after it's fully charged. But it actually looks pretty neat at night, but the lume doesn't last very long at all. So what do I like about this watch? Well, I like that it's an homage to just an amazing legendary watch worn by a legendary guy. I think this is a very well done homage. It looks very, very similar to the original watch. I love that this is hand wind with the Seagull ST19 or SG2903, just beautiful. I actually have experience with this movement before. I had a watch that I had purchased, and when I got it, the movement at certain angles, when I'd have it like crown up or crown down, it would stop. And I took it to a watch shop, and it was actually unrepairable. So I ordered a replacement movement off of eBay, and the movement is about $100 roughly, just the movement itself. So it was an expensive movement for just an experiment. So once I got it in, I was able to replace the movement no problem. And with that particular watch, I have not had another issue. So I am a little concerned. There is so much, as you can see through the case back, so many gears, so many little levers, things like that could possibly go wrong, especially if you had dropped this watch or banged this watch. Now, supposedly there are precautions in place with this movement to allow it to take a little bit of a shock, but I don't know. I don't really want to baby this watch, but I feel as if I kind of have to. But that movement is absolutely stunning. Stunning movement. I like the bracelet. I've heard some complaints about the bracelet, like people just saying, oh, this is absolutely terrible, a terrible bracelet. Well, those people have never owned a Seiko. I will tell you that right now. This bracelet is 10 times better than a Seiko. There is a little bit of a jangly, and it is hollow end links, but gosh, this is like 10 times better than a Seiko bracelet by far. The clasp is probably on par with the Seiko, and the clasp, it is vintagey style, so I think it works with the watch. I might switch it out later just because it doesn't have an extra security feature for opening. But one thing that this clasp does have that I really, really like is the tab where you grab it to open the clasp. It's actually sitting down a little bit, like almost like it's integrated into the bracelet, so it's not easy to like snag it on something really. So with this particular clasp, I wouldn't worry about snagging it and opening it like you would with some other friction style clasps. I don't think that's going to happen because of the way they have designed it. And 6 micro adjustments, nobody can argue with that. You'll get the perfect fit every time. So what do I not like about this watch? Well, I don't like that it says chronometer. I think that's deceiving, but really, who cares about that? I mean, you know what you're getting when you're getting this watch. I don't like the water resistance rating. A chronograph is not something that I would ever go swimming with or anything like that, but 30 meters is a little concerning considering it does have screw-down pushers, a screw-down crown, and a screw-down case back. I was reading a review, and the reviewer said that he was wearing this watch and he got caught in a rainstorm briefly, and the watch got a little bit wet, and then he had water underneath the glass, so moisture did get in. That I don't like that really. So this being a daily wear watch, probably not. I would say it would not be a good idea to do that. But the occasional wear, certainly, it's just a beautiful watch. Domed acrylic crystal, if I failed to mention that. So it is not sapphire. That's going to scratch easily, but Polywatch will take care of all your ailments with those. Beautiful distortion there. But I actually like that it has an acrylic crystal. I think that sticks with the vintage vibe of the original. And all in all, not a whole lot to complain about with this watch. I think it's just really good looking, and I think anyone would be happy to have this. And there you go, guys. Looks just absolutely stunning on this green Chronograph NATO Strap. Beautiful hardware there. I was unaware of this particular brand until I guess the other day. I saw it on Amazon. It was relatively new, I guess. It had an interesting design that I'm going to show you a little bit of that. So the difference between this Chronograph NATO strap and other NATO straps, this does have a floating keeper, but usually the floating keeper is this one right here, and it kind of slides up and down. so you can get the perfect secureness of the extra length on your NATO strap. But this one has the floating keeper here, and I'm not sure why they did that really. The stitching actually is what is going to keep the watch from sliding down the NATO. So I don't have long-term experience with this yet, but it's an interesting little design there. I'm curious to see how this works out over time. But I think this strap is amazing looking. The quality is pretty much fantastic, spot on. Really nicely woven edges. The holes look like to be laser cut. They look great. And the hardware on the buckle, very substantial. I like the angular design with the W there. It looks really great. This isn't an ad for Warnakoff straps at all. It's just a new strap that I came across that I thought you guys might like. And it looks absolutely stunning on this watch, without a doubt. Well, thanks for joining me again today, guys. This Paul Newman Alpha Homage is just absolutely stunning. I think if you pick one up, you're definitely not going to be disappointed. What a classy, cool watch.